Peaceful and relaxing. This is how many people might describe Erik Satie's Gymnopédies, which was written in 1888 as a set of 3 short pieces for the piano. While it is typically known today as a relaxing piece of music, its significance goes way beyond that, as it challenged some of the fundamental expectations of music during its time. In particular, the treatment of harmony. A large portion of the repertoire in Western classical music is based on what we call tonal harmony, which spans across the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic eras. The concepts of key, tonality, and harmonic function are generally standardized, and today we commonly use methods such as Roman numerals to analyze harmony. Generally speaking, the features of tonal harmony can be summarized with 2 concepts: centricity and direction. When we talk about centricity in music, we refer to the idea that the music centers around a certain pitch, which is usually the key center or the tonic note. We see many pieces being named after a key, such as Pachelbel's Canon in D or Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. The tonic is the most important note of the music. All major or minor scales start on a tonic note, and pieces tend to both begin and end on the tonic chord. Even when the music moves to other chords or other keys, it tends to eventually return to the tonic, where there is often a sense of resolution. And this brings us to the second point, which is direction. Since music tends to gravitate towards the tonic, there are tendencies for certain chords to move or progress to other chords, and this is known as harmonic function. For example, chord 1 is the most stable chord which other chords tend to return to, so it has the tonic function. The tonic tends to be preceded by the dominant, which is usually chord 5. That's why the 5-to-1 progression is the most common way to establish a tonic, since the function of the dominant is to lead into the tonic. The dominant is sometimes preceded by the predominant function, which is usually chord 4 or chord 2. Hence, the predominant to dominant to tonic trajectory is one of the most common ways to establish harmonic direction within the music, as if there is a goal for the music to move to. So it is this kind of harmonic centricity and direction that serves as the quintessential features of tonal harmony, which was used by the vast majority of music in Western classical music. And with this context in mind, when Satie wrote his Gymnopédies towards the end of the 19th century, there was an expectation for composers to write with that kind of harmonic language. But if we look at the first Gymnopédie, though the opening accompaniment pattern resembles a chord 1 and 5, tonic and dominant relationship in G major, the 5 here is not a true dominant since it is a major 7th chord and not a dominant 7th chord. The music then oscillates constantly between these 2 chords without firmly suggesting any key center with a dominant to tonic movement. There is therefore a sort of harmonic ambiguity as to whether D or G is the tonic here, since the music could also be in D major as suggested by the key signature. As for the melody, it floats on top of the harmony and also does not seem to strongly suggest any key based on its contour. The music then goes on into what seems to be a circle of fifths, but it ends on an E minor chord with no dominant chord to establish any tonic. And then, we suddenly get a D minor chord followed by a pedal point on D in the bass. There are dominant chords here, but they are not resolved in a way we would normally expect. The middle section ends abruptly on a D major chord, followed by the opening oscillating G major 7 and D major 7 chords. Throughout the piece, there is no point where the tonic is clearly established. The idea of centricity is different here. Music doesn't necessarily have to be centered on a tonic. It can just be centered on a pitch. The F sharp here serves as a common tone between G major 7 and D major 7 chords. It also begins the main melody, hence creating a sort of pitch centricity that holds together harmonies that do not function within the traditional predominant-dominant tonic framework. The lack of tonal harmonic functions means the music lacks a pull towards a tonic, giving it an ethereal feeling as if it can stay afloat, without a clear goal in mind and without the need to return to anywhere. Sometimes the music reminds me of modal harmony, which takes reference from the ancient Greek modes. In fact, the title Gymnopédie refers to a kind of festival in ancient Greece with dancing and singing. Similar to how people look to antiquity for ideas during the Renaissance era, Satie was perhaps seeking to start anew with his music, which introduces a new harmonic language that breaks the audience's expectations. Indeed, the music ends somewhere completely unexpected, a D minor chord, which takes us far away from the beginning and doesn't make much sense. In a way, the point of this music is not to make sense. Harmonic movements are often abrupt and certainly do not follow the conventional functions in tonal harmony. When Satie first wrote his Gymnopédies, they were not well received initially, given how idiosyncratic it was at that time. Its simplicity and harmonic language went against the extravagance and chromaticism of the late Romantic period. But what Satie did was groundbreaking in its own way. Music written in the 19th century is typically driven by some sort of narrative or rhetoric, demanding harmonic trajectory that serves its purpose within the overarching structure of the music. On the other hand, Satie's music often emphasizes the immediate effect of a certain harmonic color, thus diminishing the importance of harmonic functions. Satie was in correspondence with other French composers during that time like Debussy and Ravel, and was known to have greatly influenced their musical language, which soon developed into a French school that is distinct from their contemporaries from the German Romantic tradition, such as Mahler and Strauss. Coloristic, non-functional harmony is among one of the most defining features of these French composers, whose music was later commonly labeled under Impressionism. While many pieces by these composers are complex in their own way, it is perhaps important to acknowledge their beginnings in simplicity. In a way, Satie opened up a door for possibilities with his music, and his Gymnopédies can be thought of as a new beginning, written in a refreshing harmonic language that serves as a blueprint for generations of composers to come.